Hello and welcome one and all to Totally Connected, your window into New Zealand's tech frontier, brought to you by Entelar Group, the total connection company covering distribution, integrated end-to-end supply chain, IT field delivery and services, and more. I'm Jonathan Cotton. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're diving into the exciting world of solar energy, and in particular, Entelar Energy, a division of Entelar Group that's doing great things in the world of solar down under. Now, to do that, we are joined by Laura Dewar, Energy Lead from Entelar Energy, and Laura has been instrumental in building Entelar's solar division from the ground up. So in this episode, we're going to be exploring that journey into the solar space. We'll be looking at how Entelar is building this distinctly New Zealand brand, their innovative approach to distribution and support, and their vision for the future of solar in New Zealand, and lots more. Plenty to discuss, so let's get started. Welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jonathan. Lovely to be here.
It's a real pleasure to have you, Laura. Now, one of the ways that we usually start these things off is with a little bit of a bio about you. What's your background? How did you get into solar, and how did that all lead to this position with Entelar Group now?
Well, a bit of a weird kind of entry to it, I suppose. My background's actually in logistics. I'm a logistics professional by nature and have done for over 20 years in South Africa. And then when we moved across from South Africa, I was given an opportunity to look at the logistics within Entelar Group. And there I was brought in to help negotiate some contracts with a manufacturer for their solar hardware. And I seemed to just get more and more involved, and I was helping out with some certifications and making sure we had some distributors set up. And then all of a sudden, it became a main focus for me, and then I was heading it up. So it's slightly out of my comfort zone, I suppose. But in saying that, my experience in South Africa was very much around the renewables market. The company I worked for there had a renewables division that focused mainly on wind and more than solar. But I did have quite a lot of dealings with some big renewables companies then. So it's not, I suppose, that far adrift from me now to have come into it. It's just I'm sitting on the other side of the desk, I suppose, is the different viewpoint. Not just worrying about how to get equipment to the right place at the right time, but everything else that then accompanies it as well.
Great. Okay. So what was the impetus to actually establishing a new solar brand in New Zealand? What were those early conversations like?
Well, New Zealand's such a unique market, and we're also a relatively small market in the grand scheme of things. And I think when you're trying to put together something unique, but there isn't a kind of global view of it, it's quite difficult. So, we seem to be almost the poor relation of Australia half of the time. We follow the same standards. We have very little of our own legislation around these things. And so therefore we kind of take what we're given. And we just thought it was a really good opportunity to actually get a solar brand, cultivate a brand for the New Zealand market, make it so that it's built for the people who are going to be installing it, for the people who are going to be using it. New Zealand has some very unique market conditions, and what works elsewhere doesn't always work here. There needs to be some understanding from the installer, which means you have to be able to adapt to local regulations. The grid requirements, the customer expectations are all different. You can't treat it like you would Europe or America. So to bring in a brand and build the brand to adapt to those conditions and to address those concerns that the New Zealand market brings.
And, thinking about the genesis of Entelar Energy and, coming to market, what's the experience been like for you?
So we actually concluded our deal as vendor for this product back in the July of 2023, and then it was kind of working towards certifications, which is a very long, laborious, expensive process. and the development of our EMS, which is our energy management system, which is almost kind of pivotal in any kind of solar hardware, is you've got to have the software side of it. So this we were developing purely kind of from the bottom up. So we had some basics in place from the company who we engaged to develop this for us, but we've literally had to map everything and build everything else as we wanted it to be built. So a lot, the like kind of 6 months after the contract, that was where the focus was for the product. It was also trying to get our position and our branding right, and trying to understand what would be our differentiator. And we always knew that was going to be the New Zealand, Kiwi brand, because there isn't anything like it in the country. And then, of course, we had to get in at SEANZ, because SEANZ, it's the Sustainable Energy Association of New Zealand. It's a real key industry event where all installers, manufacturers, policymakers, government, all those looking at shaping the future of renewable energy in New Zealand, they all come together. And we really needed to kind of do this announcement there to get maximum impact. So that was in the August. So it was making sure that we had the product, that the sample product in time, and that we had enough literature and enough understanding about how the product works to be able to talk effectively and confidently about the product. So that was a kind of bit of a whirlwind. And then we had our first product land in December of 2023, and we literally, within days of it landing, we sold our first product, and we had our first installs going through, and our first plants were commissioned on our application. And it was a very exciting time, but it was a bit chaotic, and I had lots of sleepless nights about it.
I bet.
But from there, it just seemed to go. Luckily, over the Christmas period, I'll be honest, the Christmas period's a bit of a quieter period in the whole solar game. I think all the installers have had a long, tough year, and they take a bit of time off. So we did manage to catch breath. And then the beginning of kind of 2024, it was really just bedding down our distributors and making sure that they had what they needed. They had the information that they required, and starting to go out to their key customers and kind of doing the face-to-face. Hey, let's talk about the product. Let me explain to you what we're trying to achieve here, what we're trying to do, and getting that intel back from them, which was so valuable. These installers have been around the block a number of times. They know what they want. They know what frustrates them. They know what they need to make their businesses successful. And it was just trying to tease that information out of them, and letting them know that they were going to be heard through us. I think that was really important. So again, where our distributors really played such a vital role for us.
Yeah. Great. And I know it's early days yet, but what is the mood out there for solar? What is the appetite like?
I think that the industry is thriving, and I think it's for different reasons. We've got different markets that we look at. So we've got 3, I think, separate markets, and each of them have their own reasons for doing what they're doing and being successful in the ways they're being successful. So we've got the utility scale, which is going to be the large scale, big solar farms that are going to be generating power for the grid. We've got commercial, which is where these are, it could be anything up to 3 megawatts, say, installs, and this is either rooftop or ground mount, and again, these are where companies are making this sort of investment for their own purposes. And then we've got residential. I think the residential market is one of the easier to understand. It's a luxury in a sense. It all depends on your usage at the end of the day, and not just usage, but it's also you yourself. I think people either believe in this. It is the way of the future. It is the way forward. We have to go renewable. What we have is not going to last forever. The sun is this untapped potential that we can bring into our homes, and it makes absolute sense when you think about it. But the cost is still quite on the high side, and to be able to put in storage systems, etc., where you can fully become independent of the grid. It is still quite expensive.
So is it about appealing to those end users for Entelar Energy, or is it about developing these relationships with installers and the industry itself?
A lot of the time the installer has got to be convinced. The installer, if an installer has got to go back to site, they've already lost money on the job. And what they want is they want to put in systems that are very reliable, very easy to install, and that they can put it in and then they can move on to the next job. What they don't want to be doing is returning to site with problems, etc. So failure rates are very high on the priority list for installers when they're looking at it, along with ease of installation. So when you have the proposition that you have a product with extremely low failure rates, with an easy install process, with great technical support if you need it, and a product that looks good and lasts well, then Entelar Energy becomes a really good prospect for you.
Beautifully put, Laura. I suppose the the third part of that puzzle for Entelar Energy is distribution, isn't it? So what's the key to attracting those guys? What are their pain points?
So our whole goal with the distributors was to try and see what was making it difficult for them to distribute solar hardware, and to try and combat as many of those aspects as possible. So, often distributors have to make massive investment in MOQ, and that puts them in a very, very difficult position, that they have to make the right decisions always. So they're then slightly more reticent to make any decisions, because it affects their bottom line. So by removing those MOQs and allowing distributors to take stock on a more ad hoc basis, they're not sitting with stock on their floor, so it's not eating up their cash flow, which allows them to funnel more money and time into other aspects of the distribution process, which is, it may be technical support or whatever form that might take. So it really does allow them more freedom to make the better decisions. It also protects our brand as well. If somebody is sitting with stock and it's aging stock, it sometimes can be simpler just to discount it and push it out there. And that's not really what any vendor wants to see for their product, is it being undervalued. So we've taken that aspect of stock management away from the distributors. We allow them to order as and when they need, and we manage that side of the business so that they can get on with doing their side of the business, which is the whole idea.
And just for the record, Laura, who are those key distributors?
Jonathan, we've got 3 awesome distributors making it really easy to get Entelar Energy products. Smith's NZ is the team to go for top-notch technical and design advice. Rise Energy has an excellent reputation in the industry, and they really know their stuff. And now with the Ideal Electrical, they have 48 branches across the country, so you're covered no matter where you are. So, wherever you're based, you're now going to be able to bring solar home.
So what kind of products are we talking about? What's available at the moment in New Zealand?
So at the moment, we have both single and 3-phase inverters. We do a range of between residential and commercial. So we start at 5 kilowatts and we go all the way up to 50 kilowatts, which is on the larger commercial side. And yes, our residential battery storage systems, you can range anywhere from 5 up to 60 kilowatt hours, dependent on the inverter that you're using. So you can basically power your whole house and have sufficient power within your batteries to run all night as well. So you can become basically independent of the grid. We're also looking at introducing an EV charger. So this EV charger will be able to be integrated with EMS system, which is called Universe, and you'll be able to direct power from your solar panels through to your charger and through to your battery, and you'll be able to direct the charging of your EV from your phone.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what's the timeline?
We've just received samples in now, which we're starting to do some testing on. And the app has already been developed. So we've already got that side of the product in place. So we're looking at towards the middle of the year of having Entelar Energy EV chargers in country and on the shelves. So yeah.
Great. And beyond EV charging, what's in development? What can we expect in the short to mid-term future?
There's constantly things being developed, and we are looking. It's very difficult. You don't want to say anything because as soon as you say something, everybody wants it, and then they hold back. It's yeah. So there's constantly new technology. So the inverter systems have to move along with the new technologies that are coming out. So any new technology that happens in panels, your inverters have to match. So I think the next step for us may be high current, moving towards more high current inverters.
Oh, interesting. Lots going on. Okay, now, hey, one thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know that education and training is a big part of the strategy. Tell me a bit about what is Entelar Energy doing to build that confidence, especially across the installer network.
So yeah, I think it's always so much easier when you're in a controlled environment and people get to get hands-on with equipment for them to have a better understanding of how to do it out in the field. So what we've done is we've built a training facility at our warehouse in Auckland, in Mount Wellington. So installers can literally come in, we'll do a session with them, they can actually commission an inverter whilst they're there, really get to understand how the equipment works, understand how all the applications work, whether it be commissioning or the EMS. And that is open to all our installers. And installers, obviously, they get some turnaround in staff and they bring new staff on. So if they need to upskill, they can bring them back in again, upskill. And it just saves them having to do that on someone's house. And I think that just gives them a little bit more confidence to go into these installs. Training is so big with the installers because there's little nuances that can happen, and these little tips and tricks that you pick up. And what we do is, we kind of have almost like a basket of problems that come in, and then if we see one or two people having the same issues, what we can do is we can create either a little training session around it, a little training section around it. We're also filming some YouTube videos which people can watch, and we're trying to make them a little bit engaging. And again, these will be addressing these kind of common mistakes or common issues the installers come across on their day-to-day installs.
For people in the industry, and I guess just for the industry sort of more broadly speaking, what are the big challenges out there at the moment? How is the industry in New Zealand evolving right now?
It's, there's constantly new brands coming in, and it's very difficult, I think, for the general man on the street to understand what goes into building or manufacturing solar gear. And I think it's very easy to just look at price and let that guide you. And I think that is the wrong approach for something that's really is a big ticket item in your home. We've got a massive focus on quality and reliability, and so much money goes into R&D for our product. We are a tier 1 product, and I think this understanding of the tiering of solar products is not really well or widely understood. As manufacturers or as vendors of the product, I think there are always challenges with regards certifications and changes to the certification programs. So we've got a standards issue here in New Zealand where we're still citing the 2014 standards, but a lot of the development is going towards the 2024 standards. So it's that disconnect between what is being developed globally and what the New Zealand market can cope with. That's one aspect, and that could have some ramifications from a certification process, which could affect pricing moving forward. I think overall prices are going to come down for the solar market. Panels are becoming cheaper. Solar systems, storage systems are becoming cheaper, which is a positive thing. but it's also how the lines companies are reacting to it, I suppose, is going to be interesting moving forward. Like I mentioned before, the whole idea of having a decent buyback rate for electricity is really important. I think we're at capacity now for hydro in this country. I don't know if wind is necessarily the next. I'm not a massive fan of wind technology, to be honest. I think it's disingenuous, to be honest. I think the amount of the carbon footprint that goes into the development of those towers is pretty huge. So solar is a pretty good way of doing it, and for people to become self-sufficient. But it's how the lines can support that, and the lines have so much effect on what can and cannot be done. You've got to get their approval to get to feed into the grid. So that can be a challenge.
Yeah. Looking into the future, say the next 5 or 10 years, hardware prices are coming down. We've got infrastructure investment. What's your vision for Entelar Energy here? Where would you like to be in the next, half a decade?
Yeah, for me, I'd really like Entelar to become synonymous with solar. It's that whole, Hoover kind of idea. I'd love people to be automatically thinking Entelar Energy when they're thinking about putting a solar system in. I'd also just being able to make so much more information available to people so that they're making really informed decisions.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways to build systems, and to make people be aware of what can be done for them and to kind of act accordingly. I suppose it's not wasting money at the end of the day. So I'd like to be able to expand our range, to be able to fit more, maybe go a little bit larger with our range on the large commercial scale, but that remains to be seen. What we need to do is we want to kind of learn how to crawl before we run. We really want to come to grips and have a firm understanding of what the residential and commercial market is looking for before we start kind of getting ourselves into utility scale. But yeah, it's really just becoming synonymous with the solar industry here, and becoming a relied upon and well thought of brand. That's what we want to be. We want people to walk into their homes, look at our product, like our product, because it is beautiful product. It is pretty as solar hardware goes. It is aesthetically pleasing.
That's important.
And we want to be able to develop more and make it, be able to integrate with everything in the home, and that technology is coming forward now. You're starting to see more and more of that coming through, and yeah, we've got lots of ambitions for the product, and it's just making the right decisions at the right times now. But the focus for now is still on making sure that grassroots level, the installers know what they're doing, and that the systems that go in, because these are long-term investments people are having, that 5-10 years down the drag, they're still happy with what they've bought, and people are still getting what they've paid for.
Fantastic. Hey, now one thing I need to ask you about is you've been working on the development of the Smart Energy app. What's the development of that been like, and how long did that take?
Oh man, it's still in development.
Oh, is it?
Every month, we literally release a new version. We're on version 9 at the moment, so it's a constant work in progress, and it's something we're really quite proud of. So when you have a solar system, the inverters themselves are very bland. There's only like 3 lights on them. They're deliberately built that way. The whole idea around the product is that there is no failure point. So there's very few switches and fuses, etc. So literally on the inverter, there's 3 little lights that show up, and it doesn't give you any information. So the app is where you glean everything about what your solar system is doing. So how much power you're producing, how much you're using, how much you're pushing to the grid, how much you're pulling from the grid. All of this you get from the app. It's such a vital part of the system that without a decent EMS, everything else just falls apart. So you can have the best system in the world, but if people can't see it's the best system, they don't know they've got it. So you do it from different levels. So we have different viewpoints. So we have like an overarching view of the app, and we can see absolutely everything. And then you have the installer's view. So the installer can control things and change things and update parameters remotely, which is an amazing ability for the installers to have. And then the end users themselves have a certain view. And so what we've been trying to also figure out is what the end user needs to be able to do for themselves and should be able to do for themselves. That's been part of the development. And just in general, so every time somebody comes to us with a new great idea, we can go to our developers and we can go, we've thought of something. Can you look at putting this in? So, changing battery parameters. As you know, some of the lines companies offer different deals on low energy costs at certain hours. And on the app now, you can change when you charge your battery or when you pull from the grid or when you just use your battery power. And you can control this all from your app. And so we've now just released that to put that changes within the end user's hands, which I think is really exciting. Every month, basically, a new version is released, and it gives the ability for either the installer to do something like change the CT direction remotely, which is a great one, or for the end user to be able to do something. And what we do is we kind of take all the ideas on board and we kind of keep a kind of working log, and we have a weekly meeting with our developers. And these weekly meetings turn into, okay, what streams of work are we going to work on for this month? What can we get finished? So we have short, medium, and long-term goals that we set ourselves for the app. So this app just keeps getting bigger and better and more developed. And what we do is we invite our users to kind of come through and give us their ideas, and then people can see that come to fruition. I think it's very satisfying for them.
Wow, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for your time today, Laura, and thank you too to everyone who's tuned in. If you like what you've heard here, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and drop us a line with your feedback, topic ideas, or anything else you'd like to get off your chest. I'm Jonathan Cotton. This was the Totally Connected podcast, brought to you by Entelar Group, the Total Connection Company. Till next time, that's a wrap. Stay safe. We'll see you in a bit.